By all accounts, we're wealthier than we've ever been. Wealth is growing, homes are bigger, cars have more tech in them, luxuries that were once unimaginable are now within reach. But here's the paradox. Despite this prosperity, most people are also more anxious. They're more dissatisfied. They might even be more unfulfilled than ever before. Why is this? Well, it turns out wealth doesn't solve some of the problems that we think it will. In fact, as you climb the financial ladder and work towards retirement, the gap between your expectations and reality can leave you feeling worse than before. So in this video, I want to just take a minute to explore the hidden retirement trap that often comes with more wealth. I'll draw on some research, some psychology, and a crazy real life example to help kind of uncover why more money doesn't always mean more happiness, especially in retirement, and what you can do about it. Let me first tell you about two men whose lives took very different paths. John Marsden grew up in a wealthy family. He was a brilliant student, really, really smart. He went to Harvard, actually. He graduated from law school there. He eventually kind of became a very, very successful lawyer. By his 30s, he was married, he had kids, he was living the kind of life that most people would probably consider kind of like the pinnacle of success. Then on the other side, there's Leo DeMarco. Leo also went to Harvard, but instead of chasing wealth and fame and kind of fortune, he became a high school teacher. He spent about 40 years teaching in the high school classroom. He earned a modest salary, but he really loved his work and he really enjoyed teaching the students that he taught. Now from the outside, John, the lawyer, he seemed to have it all, right? Like money, prestige, a dream career, right? The wife, the kids, the works. Leo, by comparison, he just lived a much simpler life. Now, who are these guys? Why does it matter? Well, Marsden and DeMarco were two of the original members of the longest study on happiness ever conducted. The results of that study were outlined in The Good Life by Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz. And as participants in that study, every year, the researchers from Harvard would go and interview the subjects. They'd send them questionnaires. They'd conduct a slew of medical tests in an attempt to discover what makes us as human beings happy. These guys signed up for this lifelong science experiment. Now here's the kicker. Marsden, that successful lawyer, he was miserable, absolutely miserable. Despite his success, he struggled in his marriage. He grew distant from his children. He poured so much of himself into his career that his personal relationships fell by the wayside. By his 60s, he was divorced. He was remarried. He was still searching for happiness. He had it all, by all accounts, and yet in his own words, he was one of the least happy people in the whole study. And DeMarco, on the other hand, he was one of the happiest people you could ever meet. He found meaning in his work, joy in his relationships, contentment in his modest lifestyle. He made a lot less money, and he just lived a normal life. Following one of his many interviews over the years, one of the study's researchers even wrote, "I came away from our visit with the impression that the subject was, well, somewhat ordinary." This ordinary guy was also one of the happiest people they studied. By the way, if we haven't ever met, my name's Steve Willems. I'm a practicing certified financial planner and wealth advisor with the Willems Wealth Planning Group out here in BC. We started this channel to help you plan for your own retirement, right? Helping you think about how to plan and arrange your investments, your income streams, ideally pay less tax along the way. So why did the man with everything feel empty, while the man with so much less, he lived a rich and fulfilling life? The main takeaway from this 80+ year Harvard study of adult development is that good relationships can make us happier and healthier. The authors from that book, they explain, people who are more connected to family, to friends, and to community are happier and physically healthier than people who are less connected. People who are more isolated than they want to be find their health declining sooner than people who feel connected to others. Lonely people also live shorter lives. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at the age of 50 were the healthiest mentally and physically by the age of 80. Mic drop. If you don't see the implications here for planning for your retirement in your 50s, you have missed the plot. Move on, go watch some cat videos. Happiness in life is a pretty tricky thing. Most of us, when pushed, will define happiness by career accomplishments, right? A good job, a certain salary, right? An amount that we've saved, perhaps some status achievement or something like that. These things are all easy to quantify. But how do you rate your relationships or the strength of those relationships and the value that those relationships bring into your life? Those things are all impossible to measure. So that's challenge number one, why we often miss the boat on this. The thing that brings us the most happiness is impossible to measure. There's another challenge that we often oversee too, and it's the idea of relativity. Now, I'm not talking about the theory of special relativity or general relativity or anything like that. In today's world where many of us are wealthier than ever, happiness itself becomes more relative. If everyone around you is thriving financially, your own success can feel less significant. It's like living in a world where everyone has a palace, right? Your palace just doesn't feel so special anymore. Now, Marsden and DeMarco's stories, they highlight this rather harsh truth that money can't solve some of life's problems. For sure, financial security can provide comfort and opportunity, but it can't buy the things that matter most: health, purpose, fulfilling relationships. This disconnect is what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. As our income rises through our professional careers, we quickly get used to the comforts and the luxuries that it's going to provide, right? But what happens is the joy of a bigger house or a new car quickly fades and we're left searching for the next upgrade. We're convinced that it'll make us more happy, but it rarely does. In fact, studies show that beyond a certain point, more money doesn't actually significantly increase happiness. In a 2010 study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Dayton, they found that happiness levels off actually once around your annual income hits about $75,000. If we were to adjust that for inflation all the way out here to 2025, that'd be about $100,000 in today's dollar terms. After that, more money doesn't bring proportionate gains in emotional well-being. That seems to track with a lot of the experiences we'd hear from our clients. The deeper issue lies in what happens when money fails to deliver on its promise. Before we have wealth, we believe it's going to solve everything, right? But when we finally achieve that financial success, we're often confronted with the realization that it doesn't fix the intangible problems of life: loneliness, dissatisfaction, a lack of purpose. Money doesn't fix those things. This creates an expectation gap, a gap between what we think money will do for us and what it actually delivers. And that often leaves us actually feeling more anxious and more unfulfilled than before. We start to question whether we've been chasing the wrong things all along. This expectation gap ties into another fascinating phenomenon. It's the smile curve of happiness. A research shows that happiness tends to follow a U-shaped trajectory throughout life. In our younger years, we're generally more optimistic, right? Full of dreams, possibilities. But as we enter middle age, right? Life's responsibilities, raising kids, managing careers, dealing with financial pressures can weigh us down. This often is the low point of the happiness curve in someone's life. Now, the good news is that happiness starts to rebound as we age. Studies, including a 2020 report from the National Bureau of Economic Research, shows that in simple terms, the midlife crisis is real. Happiness reaches its low point around age 50, with peaks at age 30 and then after 70. This has been replicated in about 146 different countries, and it's held true for data reaching as far back as 1973. David Blanchflower, professor of economics at Dartmouth College, who co-authored one of the first papers on the U-shaped curve of happiness back in 2008, he calls it an established fact, one of the most striking and persistent patterns in social science. Now, why does this happen? A part of it is just a shift in priorities. As we age, we tend to focus less on external achievements and more on relationships, health, experiences that are going to bring us genuine joy. This is also when people often realize that wealth alone isn't the key to happiness. It's what you do with it that matters. And here's where the trap lies. If you've spent decades chasing financial success at the expense of relationships or personal fulfillment, you may find it harder to climb back up that happiness smile curve. The absence of meaningful connections or a sense of purpose can leave you stuck in that trough, even if your bank account is fully loaded. So that's why understanding the limits of money, right? The importance of investing in relationships and experiences, it's so crucial. It's not just about abandoning your financial goals, but about balancing them with these things that are actually going to enrich your life. So what can you do about this? Well, there's no handbook for this kind of thing, but those Harvard study participants do give us a few helpful clues. As they've reached the later stages of their life, many were asked to reflect on their biggest regrets. Their answers are not shocking. I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I had paid more attention to my kids. So much of my time was just spent doing things that weren't important to me. I wish I hadn't worried so much. I wish I hadn't wasted so much of my time. These are all common refrains and, frankly, expected refrains. No one looks back and wished that they had put in a few more hours in the office, or maybe made a little bit more in order to buy that thing. So this week, you've got a financial planner telling you that your retirement isn't all about the dollars and the cents. Happiness means different things to different people. It probably means something different for you, no doubt, but the research shows that healthy relationships, a healthy lifestyle, and enough money to make you feel comfortable, but not so much that it causes stress. These are all helpful in the journey to finding more happiness in life. So as you plan for your retirement, bank these things into your memory, work towards making those deposits in the stuff that matters. I hope that helps. That's all for this week. I'll see you in the next video.